The Valari had watched Earth for 50 years, their ships hid behind the moon, recording everything. They watched humans fight each other. They watched humans die from sickness. They watched humans struggle to grow food and find clean water. The Valari took notes and made reports. They sent everything back to their home world. The High Council of the Valari Dominion read these reports with great interest. They ruled over 40 star systems and had never lost a war. Their ships were massive. Their weapons could burn cities in seconds. Their soldiers stood 8 feet tall and wore armor that could stop any bullet. After reading all the reports, the council made a decision. Humans were weak. Humans were primitive. Humans would make excellent slaves. Supreme Commander Thalox received his orders on a bright morning. He was to take the invasion fleet to Earth and conquer it. The council expected the whole thing to take about 3 days, maybe a week if the humans were stubborn. Thalo assembled 500 warships. Each one was bigger than anything humans had ever built. He gathered 2 million soldiers, all of them trained since birth for combat. He loaded enough supplies for a month, though he doubted he would need them. The fleet jumped through space and arrived near Earth on a Tuesday afternoon. Thalox looked at the blue planet on his view screen and felt almost sorry for its people. They had no idea what was coming. He ordered his communications officer to send a message to every device on Earth. Every television, every phone, every computer screen showed the same thing. Appeared tall and gray-skinned with 4 eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light of his ship. People of Earth, he said in a voice that had been translated into every human language. I am Supreme Commander Thalox of the Valari Dominion. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 12 hours to surrender. If you do not, we will destroy your cities one by one. Do not resist. Resistance is pointless. You cannot win. The message ended. Thalox leaned back in his command chair and waited. He expected panic. He expected leaders calling to negotiate. He expected surrender. What he got was silence. Captain Danny Ortega was eating lunch aboard the carrier Resolute when the message played. He watched it with his executive officer, Commander Lisa Vance. When it finished, Danny took another bite of his sandwich. Well, he said. That's new. Lisa stared at him. Sir, there are 500 alien warships in orbit. They just threatened to destroy every city on Earth. How are you so calm? Danny finished chewing and wiped his mouth. Lisa, I've been in the Navy for 22 years. I've fought pirates in the asteroid belt. I've survived 3 ship explosions. I once spent 6 weeks floating in a damaged escape pod waiting for rescue. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Some gray-skinned guy with too many eyes doesn't scare me. He's just another enemy. He stood up and walked to the bridge. The crew was tense, scared, waiting for orders. Danny looked at them and felt a strange calm settle over him. This was what he had trained for his entire life. Listen up, he said. Those aliens think we're going to roll over and die. They think we're weak. They've been watching us fight each other for 50 years, and they think that makes us easy targets. He paused, letting his words sink in. They're wrong. All that fighting, that was practice. We've been getting ready for this moment without even knowing it. On the surface, Sergeant First Class Kevin Marsh was running combat drills in the Arizona desert when the sky went dark. His platoon of 30 soldiers looked up and saw ships blocking out the sun. Ships bigger than mountains, ships that shouldn't exist. Private Amy Chen, the youngest soldier in the unit, grabbed Kevin's arm. "Sarge, what do we do?" Kevin watched the ships for a long moment. He thought about his wife back home in Texas. He thought about his 2 kids, probably scared out of their minds right now. He thought about his grandfather, who had fought in wars that seemed small compared to this. Then he checked his rifle and turned to face his soldiers. "Here's what we do," he said, his voice steady and strong. "We adapt. We've been fighting wars since before we could. Right? We fought with sticks, with swords, with guns, with bombs. Now we fight aliens. The enemy is different, but the job is the same. We protect our home, we protect our families, and we make the enemy regret ever coming here." The soldiers stared at him. Some of them were shaking, some of them were crying. But as Kevin spoke, something changed in their eyes. Fear was still there, but now there was something else too. Determination, anger, pride. The Valari began landing their ground forces 6 hours later. They chose major cities first: New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing. Their drop ships came down like metal rain, and their soldiers poured out, expecting terrified civilians and token resistance. What they found was different. In New York, the first Valari squad walked into Times Square and met a wall of bullets. Police officers, National Guard troops, and ordinary citizens with hunting rifles opened fire from every window and rooftop. The Valari armor held against most of the shots, but not all of them. 3 aliens fell before the rest even understood what was happening. The squad leader screamed into his communicator, "We are under attack. Heavy resistance. Request immediate support." His superiors were confused. The reports had said humans were weak. The reports had said humans would surrender. The reports had said this would be easy. The reports were wrong. In the Arizona desert, Kevin Marsh led his platoon toward the nearest landing zone. They moved through the night like ghosts, using skills they had learned in a dozen different wars. When they reached the Valari camp, Kevin studied the enemy carefully. They post guards in predictable patterns. He whispered to Amy, "They don't check their corners. They don't watch the shadows. It's like they've never fought anyone who fights back." Amy nodded, her fear replaced by focus. "What's the plan, Sarge?" Kevin smiled. "In the darkness, we teach them how humans make war." The attack came at 3:00 in the morning. The Valari never saw it coming. By the time the sun rose, 40 alien soldiers were dead, and Kevin's platoon had disappeared back into the desert without losing a single person. Supreme Commander, though, received the reports from the surface with growing disbelief. His forces were dying, not in huge numbers. Not yet, but dying nonetheless. Against primitives. Against humans. He stared at the blue planet below and felt something he had never felt before: doubt. 2 weeks had passed since the invasion began. Supreme Commander Thalok stood in his war room staring at holographic maps that showed nothing but bad news. Red dots marked Valari losses. There were too many red dots. His aide, a young officer named Korvax, approached with another report. "Sir, we have lost contact with the garrison. The city called Chicago, all 2,000 soldiers gone." Thalok did not respond. He was trying to understand how this was possible. His soldiers were stronger than humans. His weapons were better than human weapons. His ships controlled the sky, and yet his army was bleeding. How he finally asked, "How are they doing this?" Korvax hesitated. "Sir, the humans do not fight like any enemy we have faced before. They hide, they attack from shadows, they use explosives. Hidden in the ground, they shoot from buildings and then disappear before we can respond. Our soldiers do not know how to fight an enemy they cannot see." In the ruins of Chicago, Staff Sergeant Maria Delgado was teaching a group of survivors how to stay alive. She was 34 years old and had spent 15 years in the army. She had fought in 3 different wars before the aliens came. Now she was fighting the most important war of all. "The Valari are big and strong," she told the group, which included soldiers, police officers, and ordinary people who had picked up guns. "But they are also stupid. They walk in straight lines. They never look up. They never look behind them. They announce their positions with loud footsteps and glowing weapons." She pointed to a map of the city that she had drawn on a piece of cardboard. "We use the sewers to move around. We attack fast and then we vanish. We never fight them in the open. We make them afraid of every shadow, every doorway, every pile of rubble." Eddie Torres, a young man who had been a college student before the invasion, raised his hand. "But their armor stops our bullets. How do we kill them?" Maria smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Their armor protects their chest and back, but their joints are weak, their necks are exposed, and if you shoot them enough times in the same spot, even the best armor cracks." She held up a homemade explosive. "Or you can use one of these under their feet, and it doesn't matter how good their armor is." That night, Maria led a team of 12 into Valari-controlled territory. They moved through the sewers, silent as ghosts. They came up through a manhole behind a Valari patrol and attacked without warning. Maria shot the first alien in the neck. Eddie threw an explosive under the feet of the second. The others opened fire, aiming for joints and weak spots. In 30 seconds, 8 Valari soldiers were dead. "Move," Maria ordered. "Back to the sewers. Go. Go, go." They disappeared underground before the Valari reinforcements arrived. The aliens found only bodies and silence. In orbit, Captain Danny Ortega was fighting his own war. The Valari fleet was still massive, still powerful, but Danny had learned something important. The aliens did not know how to adapt. They used the same formation every time, he told Lisa during a strategy meeting. They put their big ships in front and their small ships behind. They fire in volleys all at once, then wait to recharge. Lisa nodded. "So we hit them during the recharge. Our ships are faster. We can get in, do damage, and get out before they can respond." Danny grinned. "Exactly. We can't beat them in a straight fight. But we don't have to fight straight. We fight dirty. We fight smart. We fight like humans." The next battle proved him right. Danny led a group of 15 small attack ships against a Valari squadron. They waited until the aliens fired their volley, then charged directly at them. The human ships weaved between the massive alien vessels, firing at engines and weapon systems. The Valari tried to respond, but their big ships were slow and clumsy. They couldn't turn fast enough to track the human attackers. By the time they recharged their weapons, Danny and LT Unk and GT Y's ships were already gone, leaving 3 damaged Valari cruisers behind. "They're learning," Lisa reported after the battle. "They're trying to adapt their tactics." Danny shook his head. They're too slow. It takes them days to change their plans. We change hours in minutes. That's the difference. That's why we're going to win. On the ground, the war was becoming a nightmare for the Valari. They controlled the skies. They controlled the open spaces, but they could not control the cities, the forests, the mountains, or the deserts. Everywhere they went, humans were waiting. Kevin Marsh had become a legend among the resistance fighters in the Southwest. His platoon had grown from 30 soldiers to 300, a mix of military veterans and civilians who wanted to fight. They called themselves the Desert Ghosts. The key is to never be where they expect you. Kevin taught his fighters. They send patrols at regular times along regular routes, so we watch, we learn, and then we hit them where they least expect it. Amy Chen, now a corporal, had become one of Kevin's best soldiers. What about their air support? They can call in strikes from orbit. Quote. Kevin nodded. That's why we stay close to their bases. They won't bomb their own people, and when we attack, we scatter in all directions. By the time they figure out where we went, we're already setting up the next ambush. The Valari commander in the region, a veteran officer named Draxal, was losing his mind trying to catch the desert ghosts. He sent out larger patrols. The humans ambushed them. He sent out armored vehicles. The humans used explosives to destroy them. He called in orbital strikes on suspected hideouts. The humans were never there. These creatures are insane, Draxal reported to Supreme Commander Thalox. They fight without hope of victory. They attack forces 10 times their size. They sacrifice themselves to destroy a single vehicle. I have never seen anything like it. Listen to similar reports from commanders all over Earth. The same story everywhere. Humans who refused to surrender. Humans who kept fighting no matter how many died. Humans who seemed to grow stronger with every defeat. Perhaps, Thalox said slowly, we have made a terrible mistake. His aide Korvax looked at him with surprise. Sir, we thought their constant wars made them weak. We thought their short lives made them soft. We were wrong. Stared at the image of Earth on his screen. Their wars made them strong. Their short lives made them desperate. They have nothing to lose, so they risk everything, and we have no idea how to fight an enemy like that. The war was only 2 weeks old, but was beginning to understand a horrible truth. The Valari had conquered 40 star systems by being bigger, stronger, and more advanced than everyone else, but none of that mattered against humans because humans didn't care about being smaller, weaker, or less advanced. Humans just cared about winning, and they would do anything to win. 3 months into the war, the Valari were no longer winning. They were barely holding on. Supreme Commander Thalox had requested more ships, more soldiers, more supplies. The High Council had sent them. Confused by his reports, how could the mighty Valari Dominion struggle against primitives? How could humans possibly resist their superior technology? Fall no longer had good answers to these questions. He only had dead soldiers and destroyed ships. On the colony world of New Kansas, the last major human settlement outside Earth, Major Patricia Webb prepared for the fight of her life. Her garrison had 400 soldiers. The Valari were sending 5,000. Patricia was 41 years old. She had gray hair, tired eyes, and scars on her hands from 20 years of combat. She had seen friends die on 6 Different worlds she had buried. Soldiers who were young enough to be her. Children, she was tired of war, but she would fight one more time. Ma'am, the Valari landing force will arrive in 6 hours, Corporal Sam Huang reported. He was young, barely 23, but he had proven himself in 3 battles since the invasion began. Patricia studied the holographic map of the terrain. New Kansas was a farming world, mostly flat plains and gentle hills, bad terrain for defense, but there was one feature that might save them: a long, narrow canyon that led directly to the main settlement. They'll come through the canyon, Patricia said. It's the fastest route. They always take the fastest route. Sam looked at the canyon. On the map, we could ambush them there. Put soldiers on the walls. Patricia shook her head. They'd see us there. Sensors are too good. No, we need something bigger. She zoomed in on the canyon walls. They were made of loose rock, unstable from decades of erosion. How much mining explosive do we have? Sam checked his tablet. About 2 tons. We were using it to clear new farmland. Before the invasion, Patricia smiled. Not anymore. Get every engineer we have. We're going to bring those walls down on their heads. The Valari arrived right on schedule. Their commander, an ambitious officer named Varric, led 30 armored vehicles and 5,000 soldiers into the canyon. He expected light resistance at most. His scouts had detected no human soldiers in the area. The canyon was 2 mi long and 100 ft deep. Varric's force was halfway through when the first explosion hit. The sound was deafening. The entire left wall of the canyon collapsed, burying 10 vehicles and hundreds of soldiers. Before anyone could react, the right wall came down. 2, then the walls at both ends of the canyon fell, trapping the survivors. Inside, Varric screamed into his communicator, but there was no response. His equipment was damaged, his soldiers were dying, and somewhere above him, humans were preparing to finish the job. Patricia watched from a hilltop as her soldiers opened fire on the trapped Valari. They couldn't miss. The aliens had nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. It was a slaughter. Cease fire, Patricia ordered. After 10 minutes, the canyon was silent except for the groans of wounded aliens. Send in teams to collect weapons and supplies. Leave the wounded. They can tell their friends what happened. Sam looked at her with something like awe. Ma'am, that was incredible. Patricia shook her head. That was necessary, and it won't be enough. They'll be back with more troops, more ships. We need to get everyone off this planet. She was right. Within a week, the Valari returned with an army 10 times larger. But by then, the humans were gone, evacuated on civilian ships that had slipped through the orbital blockade. Patricia was the last to leave, watching from orbit as the Valari claimed an empty world. They won the planet, she said quietly to Sam, but they lost 5,000 soldiers to get it. If every human world costs them that much, they'll run out of soldiers before they run out of worlds. Back on Earth, the war was changing. The initial chaos had settled into a pattern. The Valari controlled the oceans and the open skies. Humans controlled the cities, the mountains, the forests, and the underground. Admiral Danny Ortega, promoted after a series of successful space battles, was working on something bigger than ambushes and raids. He was planning a counterattack. We can't keep defending forever, he told the War Council. Group of military leaders from every nation on Earth, they have more ships, more soldiers, more resources. If we just sit here, they'll eventually wear us down. General Frank Martinez, an old soldier who had come out of retirement to fight the aliens, nodded slowly. What do you propose? Danny brought up a star map showing the Valeri supply lines. Their fleet needs fuel and ammunition. All of it comes from a depot here at the edge of our solar system. If we destroy that depot, their ships will be stranded. They'll have to retreat or starve. The room was silent. Every officer was thinking the same thing. The depot was heavily defended. The human fleet was outnumbered and outgunned. An attack would be suicide. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Doyle, the youngest officer in the room, spoke up. Their defenses are designed to stop a conventional attack. Big ships, standard formations. But what if we don't attack conventionally? Danny smiled. He had been waiting for someone to say that. Exactly. We don't send our fleet against theirs. We send small teams in fast ships. We slip past their defenses, plant explosives, and get out before they know what happened. Frank stroked his chin, thinking, it's risky. If our teams get caught, they're dead. Everyone who volunteers will know the risks, Danny said. But think about what we gain if it works. Their supply lines, we buy ourselves months, maybe years. We show them that we can hit them anywhere, anytime. The council voted to approve the mission. Volunteers lined up around the block. Meanwhile, on the surface, Maria Delgado received new orders. She was being transferred from Chicago to a special operations unit. Her mission: train fighters for the counterattack on Valeri-held territory. We're going on the offensive, Eddie asked. When she told him, Maria nodded. About time, don't you think? I'm tired of hiding in sewers. I want to see what their worlds look like. She gathered her best fighters and began training them for something no human had ever done before: an attack on an alien planet. Kevin Marsh received similar orders. His desert ghosts were becoming the spearhead of a new kind of warfare. They would be among the first humans to carry the war to the enemy. We started this war running and hiding, Kevin told his soldiers, but we're not running anymore. We're hunting, and the Valeri are about to learn what it feels like to be prey. The humans were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. 6 months after the invasion, humanity struck back. Admiral Danny Ortega stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching his fleet assemble. 47 ships, most of them damaged from previous battles, held together with spare parts and desperate hope. They were facing a Valeri depot defended by 200 warships. It should have been impossible. All ships report ready, sir, Commander Lisa Vance said. Her voice was calm, but Danny could see the fear in her eyes. She knew the odds as well as anyone. Danny opened a channel to the entire fleet. Listen up, everyone. I'm not going to lie to you. This mission is dangerous. A lot of us might not come back. The Valeri have more ships, bigger guns, and better technology. He paused, looking at the stars on the view screen. Somewhere out there, his children were hiding in a bunker, waiting to hear if their father was still alive. But here's what they don't have, he continued. They don't have our spirit. They don't have our stubbornness. They don't have generations of warriors who learned to fight against impossible odds. They think we're beaten. They think we're desperate. They're right about the Desperate part, but desperate humans are the most dangerous humans. He took a deep breath. We're going to hit them. Hard and fast, small teams quick. Strikes then out, don't try to be heroes, don't try to win single-handedly, just do your job and trust your teammates to do theirs. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you mess with humanity. Let's move. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. They emerged in the middle of chaos. Valari Depot was a massive station, surrounded by cargo ships and tankers. The defense fleet had been expecting a conventional attack, big ships meeting, big ships in organized formations. Instead, they got human raiders. Dany and LT Unk and GT, Y's small attack craft, scattered in every direction, each one targeting something different. Some went for weapon systems on the defending ships, some went for engine pods, some headed straight for the depot itself, carrying enough explosives to crack. Moon Omega team were hit. Someone screamed over the radio, "We're going down." Dany watched a human ship spiral toward a cruiser trailing fire and debris. At the last moment, the pilot activated his remaining engines and aimed directly at the cruiser's bridge. The explosion lit up the darkness of space. Dany, Lisa said quietly, "That was Captain Rodriguez. He knew exactly what he was doing." Dany nodded, his jaw tight. "Note his name. We remember everyone who falls today." The battle was brutal and fast. Human ships weaved through the Valari formation, too small and quick to hit easily. They took damage, lots of damage, but they kept coming every time. A Valari gunner destroyed one human ship, two more appeared somewhere else. Meanwhile, the demolition teams reached the depot. Lieutenant Mike Santos led a group of 12 soldiers through the station's corridors, planting charges at critical points. They met Valari guards and cut them down without slowing. Charges said. In engineering, Mike reported. Moving to the fuel storage, a Valari soldier appeared from a side corridor, raising his weapon. Mike shot him twice in the neck and kept running. Fuel storage secured, he said a minute later. All charges armed, getting out now. The demolition teams extracted just before the depot exploded. The blast was enormous, a new sun blooming in the darkness. It destroyed not just the station, but a dozen Valari ships that were too close. Dany watched it on his viewscreen and allowed himself a small smile. All ships withdraw. Mission accomplished. Of the 47 ships that had begun the attack, 31 made it home. 16 ships and over 800 sailors died in the battle, but they had destroyed the main Valari supply depot and crippled the invasion fleet. On the surface of Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Humans had attacked the aliens. Humans had won. Kevin Marsh heard about the victory while preparing for his own mission. His desert ghosts were about to become the first humans to invade an alien world. Thalos Prime, Kevin told his soldiers as they loaded onto transport ships. It's a Valari colony, about 2 weeks away. Civilian population, small military garrison. Our job is simple: capture the planet and show the Valari that nowhere is safe. Amy Chen checked her rifle for the 10th time. Sarge, what about the civilians? Do we fight them too? Kevin shook his head firmly. No, we're not monsters. We're soldiers. The civilians are off limits. We target military installations, supply depots, communication centers. Anyone who surrenders, we treat with respect. Anyone who doesn't, we eliminate. Clear? Clear Sarge, the journey to Thalos. Prime was long and tense. Kevin spent most of it training his soldiers for what was coming. He taught them Valari. Weak points, Valari tactics, Valari psychology. They're not used to losing. He explained. Every time they face defeat, they freeze up. They don't know how to handle setbacks because they've never had setbacks before. We use that. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we never give them time to recover. They landed on Thalos Prime under cover of darkness. The Valari garrison had no idea they were coming. By the time the first alarm sounded, Kevin's forces had already destroyed 3 military bases and captured the main communication center. The garrison commander, a veteran named Morex, tried to organize a counterattack. He gathered his soldiers and marched them toward the human positions. He expected a fair fight, formation against formation, soldier against soldier. What he got was an ambush that killed half his force in the first 5 minutes. They fight without honor, Morex screamed into his communicator. They hide, they use traps, they attack from shadows. Kevin listened to the transmission from his position on a nearby hill. He had learned to understand basic Valari language during the war. Honor doesn't win wars, he muttered. Winning wins wars. The campaign on Thalos Prime lasted 2 weeks. By the end, the Valari garrison had surrendered and the human flag flew over the capital city. Kevin stood in the main square looking at the terrified alien civilians who had never imagined this could happen. Tell your leaders, he said to the surrendered commander, that Earth is no longer the target. Earth is the hunter and we're just getting started. Back in orbit, Admiral Ortega received news of the victory. He smiled for the first time in months. 2 weeks ago, they thought they would conquer us, he said to Lisa. Now they're defending their own territory. How quickly things change. Lisa nodded, but her expression was troubled. They'll fight harder now. This is their home. They won't give up easily. Danny shrugged. Neither will we. We never do. The war had entered a new phase. Humanity was no longer just surviving. Humanity was winning. 1 year after the invasion began, Supreme Commander Thalls requested a meeting with the High Council. He had to do it in person. What he had to say could not be trusted to any communication channel. He traveled back to the Valari home world for the first time since the war started. Journey took 3 weeks, 3 weeks of silence and thinking and reviewing everything that had gone wrong. The council chamber was a massive hall of black stone and golden light. The 12 council members sat in a half circle, their 4 eyes fixed on as he entered. They had read his reports, they had seen the casualty lists. They were not happy. Supreme Commander, the council leader, said, her voice cold and sharp, you were given the largest invasion force in our history. You are facing a primitive species on a single world. Explain to us how you are now losing this war. Thalos had prepared for this moment. He had thought about what to say for weeks, but standing before the council, he realized there was no good way to explain it. There was only the truth. Honored council, he said, we underestimated the humans. We all did. I did. Our scouts did. Every report we received was accurate but wrong. We saw what the humans were. We failed to understand what that meant. He activated a holographic display showing Earth. We watched them fight wars among themselves and called them violent. We should have Called them experienced, they have been perfecting the art of war for thousands of years. Every strategy, every weapon, every dirty trick, they invented them all. Fighting each other, the display changed to show human soldiers in combat. We saw their short lives and called them weak. We should have called them urgent. They know they have limited time, so they accomplish more in a decade than we do in a century. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They act, adapt, and overcome. More images appeared. Human ships attacking Valari vessels. Human soldiers charging into battle against overwhelming odds. Human civilians picking up weapons to defend their homes. We saw their fragile bodies and called them vulnerable. We should have called them survivors. They have lived through ice ages, plagues, famines, and wars that killed millions. Every disaster made them stronger. Every challenge taught them new ways to survive. The paused, gathering his thoughts. We thought we were conquering a weak species. We were wrong. We awakened something ancient and terrible. Humans are not prey. They are predators. They have claws and fangs hidden inside their soft skin, and now those claws are aimed at us. The council was silent. Finally, the leader spoke. What do you recommend? Thalox took a deep breath. Peace. We must negotiate peace before we lose anything else. The council erupted in outrage. Peace with primitives, with a species they had planned to enslave. Unthinkable, impossible, shameful. But Thal stood firm. If we continue this war, we will lose more than ships and soldiers. We will lose everything. The humans will not stop. They will never stop, even if we kill 90% of them. The remaining 10% will keep fighting. They will build new weapons. They will find new strategies. They will come to our worlds and burn them the way we tried to burn theirs. He looked at each council member in turn. I have studied them for a year. I have fought them in space and on the ground. I know what they are capable of, and I am telling you we cannot beat them, not because they are stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because they refuse to accept defeat. It is not in their nature. It is not in their blood. They would rather die than surrender. Also of use lead all die. I5 lead I5 when times 7. Also of use lead. Also of use lead I'm 7. Also of use lead I'm 7. The council debated for 3 days. In the end, they agreed to sue for peace. It was the first time in Valari history that they had ever done so. The peace negotiations took place aboard the resolute Admiral Danny. Ortega led the human delegation. He wore his dress uniform, the one with all the medals he had earned over 30 years of service. Beside him stood the heroes of the war: Maria Delgado, Kevin Marsh, Patricia Webb, Mike Santos, and a dozen others. Thalox led the Valari delegation. He walked into the conference room with his head held high. Despite everything, he was still a warrior, still a commander. He would not shame himself with weakness. Negotiations were tense but surprisingly quick. The Valari agreed to withdraw from all human territory. They agreed to pay reparations for the damage they had caused. They agreed to recognize humanity as an equal species in galactic affairs. In return, the humans agreed to release all Valari prisoners and return the territory they had captured, including Thalos Prime. When the treaty was signed, Thalo looked at Ortega and asked the question that had been burning in his mind for months. Admiral, I must know, when we first arrived, when you saw our fleet blocking your sun, were you afraid? Danny thought about it for a moment. Yes, he admitted, I was afraid, everyone was. Then how did you keep fighting? How did you not surrender? Danny smiled, but there was something fierce behind it. Because being afraid doesn't mean you stop fighting. It means you fight harder. Humans have always been afraid. Afraid of nature, afraid of disease, afraid of each other, but we never let fear control us. We face our fears and we beat them. That's who we are. Explain. Fox nodded slowly. Understanding at last. We thought your fear made you weak. A lot of people have made that mistake. Danny said they usually don't live long enough to make it twice. After the Val-Ari delegation left, Lisa Vance found Danny standing alone on the observation deck looking at the stars. We won, she said softly. I still can't believe it. Danny nodded. We did, but it cost us a lot of good. People died. Lisa stood beside him, following his gaze to the endless darkness beyond the ship. What happens now? Danny thought about all the friends he had lost. Kevin Marsh had died 3 months ago, leading a charge that saved his entire platoon. Maria Delgado had lost an arm but refused to stop fighting. Patricia Webb was still out there somewhere training the next generation of soldiers. Now we rebuild, he said. We heal, we remember the ones we lost. He paused. And we get ready. Ready for what? Danny smiled. Galaxy knows about us now. The Val-Ari won't be the last to test us. Others will come. They'll hear about the primitive species that beat the mighty Dominion. Some will want to trade with us, learn from us. Others will want to try their luck. He turned to face Lisa, his eyes bright with something that might have been hope or might have been warning. We showed the universe what happens when you underestimate humans. We showed them that we're not weak. We're not easy targets. We're survivors. We're fighters. We're the species that refuse to die, no matter what the odds. He looked back at the stars, at the countless worlds waiting to be discovered. They thought they were the hunters and we were the prey. They were wrong, and anyone else who makes the same mistake will learn the same lesson. Lisa nodded, understanding. The war was over, but humanity's journey was just beginning. The stars were waiting, and humans were ready to claim them.